If your doctor looked at your liver panel and told you everything looks fine, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because the tests she ordered were built to catch one specific type of liver problem, and it is not the one that tends to develop quietly in people over 60. Standard liver enzymes rise when liver cells are actively dying. Fibrosis is different. It is scarring, not cell death. Scarring does not raise those numbers. You can have advancing scar tissue in your liver right now, and your panel will not move. In the next 15 minutes, why fibrosis is invisible to standard tests, what symptoms people over 60 are already experiencing and attributing to something else, and one specific scoring tool already in your doctor's chart that can actually find it. The hardest part of all of this, there is no pain signal coming. The liver has no pain receptors. The signal you have been waiting for, your liver cannot send it. That changes what you need to do next. Most people assume that when a doctor orders a liver panel and the results come back normal, the liver has been checked. That is a reasonable assumption. It is also incomplete. Liver enzymes measure one specific event, liver cells actively dying and releasing their contents into the bloodstream. That is all they measure. Fibrosis, the slow accumulation of scar tissue, is a structural process. It does not require liver cells to die. It can advance for years without triggering a single enzyme reading. Over the years of looking at the gap between what standard panels report and what imaging data reveals, the pattern I kept returning to was how often people in their 60s had been told their liver was fine, repeatedly, while other tools told a different story. They had no reason to doubt the paperwork. The test came back normal. That is usually where the conversation ends. It is also, in many cases, where the real problem begins. Most people over 60 walk out of their annual checkup believing the liver has been examined, when the one thing a standard panel cannot examine is exactly what tends to build silently in this decade. If the enzyme panel is not the right tool, what is? Liver fibrosis, actual scarring of liver tissue, can reach a moderate stage while every enzyme on your standard panel sits in the normal range. Your doctor sees a clean result and moves on. Your liver has been building scar tissue for years without triggering a single alarm. And the timing of this matters more than most people realize. After 50, the body's changing metabolism, particularly how it handles insulin, creates conditions that quietly accelerate liver scarring. This is the decade it builds. It is also the decade most people are told their numbers look fine. If you stop here, this next part is the one most people never hear, because it explains why the symptoms you have already noticed are not what you have been told they are. Carolyn had been in HR leadership for 22 years in Columbus. At 63, she started blocking her afternoons, not from workload, but from a heaviness she couldn't name. She sat in her car for a few extra minutes each morning before going inside. Her doctor had told her 6 months earlier that her liver enzymes looked great. She had believed that. She still believed it when she rescheduled the third meeting in a week because she simply didn't have the energy to show up to it. What was her body measuring that the lab wasn't? If Carolyn's story sounds like someone you know, or like yourself, the like button is the fastest way to get this in front of someone else sitting with the same unanswered question. That is the only reason I am asking. The liver has no pain receptors, none. So everything you are waiting for, the signal that would tell you something is wrong, your liver is simply incapable of sending it. It is a bit like checking whether a bridge is rusty by looking at whether cars are still crossing it. The traffic tells you nothing about the structure underneath. The question is not whether the panel is wrong. The question is what it was never designed to see. If any of this sounds familiar, type yes in the comments. I read every one. So now you know what the test is not catching. What you do not know yet is what is actually happening inside the liver while those numbers sit quietly in the normal range. That is a different story entirely. What is happening inside the liver has nothing to do with cells dying. The process that builds silently and stays invisible to your panel is something different altogether. When the liver sustains repeated low-grade injury from insulin resistance, from inflammation, from decades of metabolic stress, its repair system activates. That repair system lays down collagen. Over time, those collagen deposits harden into bands of scar tissue, and the liver slowly loses its ability to flex and function the way it once did. Enzymes track cell death. They cannot track what the repair process has already left behind. Think of it like a house where the walls look fine and the paint is fresh, but the foundation has been settling for years. No one checked the foundation because nobody ordered that inspection. That is what Carolyn's body was registering, not cell death. The cumulative drag of a liver that had been laying down scar tissue for years, quietly, without a single lab marker moving. The liver is one of the most resilient organs in the human body. It regenerates, it compensates, it adapts. That is exactly what makes fibrosis so difficult to catch. It is adapting right through the damage. Research in this area consistently shows that liver inflammation and early to moderate scarring can coexist with completely normal enzyme readings. The liver tolerates a considerable amount of structural change before it signals through the tests your doctor actually orders. And here's what the research has clarified about what actually matters. A landmark New England Journal of Medicine study confirmed that fibrosis stage, not fat content, not enzyme levels, is the single strongest predictor of liver-related outcomes. The number your doctor is watching may be the least important one. Marcus came back to woodworking at 67 in Portland after 30 years of engineering projects that left no room for it. Within a few months, he was leaving things half-finished, not from boredom. A dull ache below his right rib would arrive after 40 minutes at the bench, and he had learned to stop before it did. His blood work said normal. His GP said, good shape for his age. What Marcus noticed was that he had started timing himself without realizing it. The shop was the same. Something else wasn't. The fatigue you've been attributing to getting older, it may not be age at all. It may be your liver working around scar tissue. The irony is that the liver is one of the most regenerative organs in the body, right up until the point where the scarring starts, and then that same quiet resilience works against you. Have you been told your liver numbers are normal but still feel off? Tell me below. Just one word is enough. Fibrosis stage is the number that predicts what comes next. It is also the number your standard annual panel is not measuring, not calculating, and not reporting. The number that matters most is the one most people have never been given. If you leave before the next section, you will have the problem clearly. What you will not have is what to do about it. If fibrosis doesn't show on the standard panel, how would you ever find out what stage you're actually at? Understanding the mechanism is one thing. The harder question is what to do when the tool your doctor has been using cannot answer the question you actually need answered. That is where most people get stuck, and that is exactly where we are going next. If you are watching this and realizing that the tests you have trusted for years may not be asking the right question, that confusion is worth paying attention to. It means you are asking something real. Subscribe to this channel. I cover the gaps between what standard medicine monitors and what your body is actually telling you. New research, real context, no noise. Subscribe and I will keep showing up. The problem was never the doctor. The problem was the instrument. And when the instrument is wrong for the job, even a careful clinician gets an answer that means nothing. Most people use how they feel as their primary measure of what is happening inside. If you feel roughly the same as you did a year ago, the working assumption is that your body is roughly the same. For most conditions, that logic holds, but liver fibrosis does not follow that logic. It changes structure before it changes sensation. Feeling the same as last year is not proof that nothing has changed. Diane, a science teacher in Nashville, finally went to her doctor and asked specifically about liver fibrosis. Her doctor pulled up her most recent panel, pointed to it, and said there was no reason to investigate further. Diane drove home wondering what the right test even was. That question, that specific question, is what this last section answers. Tools like FibroScan, a painless ultrasound-based test, measure the actual stiffness of your liver tissue, something a standard blood panel cannot do. These tests exist, they are validated, and most people over 60 have never been offered one because it is not part of the standard annual workup. And the reason timing matters here, the reason this is not something to defer, comes down to how fibrosis actually progresses. Liver scarring does not progress in a straight line. It can sit nearly dormant for years, then accelerate without any new symptoms appearing. That is why feeling roughly the same as last year is not the reassurance it seems to be. I want to be careful here, because I am not saying your doctor missed something. I am saying the system handed your doctor the wrong instrument. Diane had taught middle school science in Nashville for 19 years. At 61, she quietly stopped signing up for after-school events. She didn't explain it to anyone. She started eating lunch in her classroom, not for peace, but because finishing a full meal in front of colleagues had become something she managed rather than enjoyed. She went to her doctor and asked specifically about her liver. The panel was normal. There was, she was told, no reason to look further. She drove home and wondered what the right test even was. Here is what Diane now knows to ask for, and what you can ask for too. There's a scoring tool called the FIB-4 index. It is a calculation your doctor can run using information already in your chart, and it gives a fibrosis risk estimate that a standard enzyme panel cannot. At your next appointment, ask your doctor to calculate your FIB-4 score. This uses your age, 2 liver enzyme numbers your doctor already measures, and your platelet count, 4 numbers already in your chart. No new test required. Then ask whether your score places you in a low, intermediate, or high-risk category. Those 3 categories exist. You are entitled to know which one applies to you. If your score is intermediate or higher, or if your doctor is uncertain, ask specifically about a referral for FibroScan. It is non-invasive, it takes minutes, and it measures the one thing a blood panel cannot: how stiff your liver tissue has become. Then document the conversation. Write down what was ordered and what was not. Your follow-up appointment matters more when you know what question it is answering. That is it. That is the whole thing. The false reassurance, the clean result that ended the conversation, was never a verdict on your liver. It was the answer to a narrower question than the one you needed to ask. Fibrosis caught before it reaches an advanced stage is addressable. The window is real. But it only stays open if you know to ask for the test that actually measures it. You probably already suspected the clean result was not the whole answer. That is not paranoia. That is pattern recognition. And it deserved to be taken seriously. If this gave you something, a new way to look at what your body has been telling you, a reason to ask a different question at your next appointment, subscribe to this channel. New research, real context, no noise. The next one builds on this. If someone in your life has been told their liver numbers are normal and is still not convinced that is the whole story, send them this video. That is the kind of thing worth sharing with someone you care about. You already knew something the test wasn't catching. That instinct matters.